Jacob from WagerMeThis here. I'm live again. Interesting situation. It took a really long time to get fiber internet at my house, and we have finally got it. So, with that said, here I am. Here I am, sirs. And, which is great because I've been waiting for this for a very long time to be able to go live again and to be able to do all those things. Hold on, let me let my dog out. My previous internet was just too choppy. It wouldn't work good enough. So now I'm going to be able to do a whole bunch of things. Well, awesome, Gerald. I'm going to be able to do a whole bunch of things that I've been wanting to do, which is great because they told us 3 years ago. They told us 3 years ago that we would be getting this internet. So I need you guys to tell me like what my delay is, how fast my delay is. So let's do that a little bit first, because I have as fast of internet as I can get at my house right now. And from what I can tell from my son's stuff, streaming his couple video games or whatever, it's definitely quite a bit quicker. Well, come on now. This is supposed to do something I wanted it to do, and it's not. My tripod, I need to buy a new tripod. My tripod's losing part of its, what do you call it? Like, it doesn't hold as good anymore. I need to buy a new one. I've had this one for a long time. Chip spacers. Yeah, I'm just kind of curious how long my delay is before I talk. I hopefully it's not very long. Fantastic. Chip spacers. I'll show you what I do, and I know you guys have seen it before. But I split my chips up. Like if I had green chips, I would put them like this. Every other $100, I would split like this, and that's what I do. I don't use chip spacers. I do have some of them that ProCraps gave me. John from ProCraps, he gave me a bunch of them, and the reason I don't use them, see how that would look, that's what I do. But the reason I don't use the spacers is not because I don't like them. It's just, I always forget them. I always forget to take them with me. So that's really the only reason I don't use them. Another thing that my house is going to be professionally remodeled probably in January. And at that point, I'm going to have a much better place to do all this, where I can have more cameras and stuff. Because right now, this is essentially in my living room. Fantastic. Thank you, guys. My craps table is essentially in my living room. So my living room / kitchen that's not put together. But we are in the process. We're taking all these quotes and all that good stuff, and we're about to have it all rebuilt. But you're always 6 months out, 7 months out, even after you get your quotes. Yeah, so that white dollar chip stuff, I tend to not have them at the casino. I tend to never have the dollar chips because I use them to tip. Like almost always, I clear out my white chips and tip. I'm kind of generous at the casino, really. Probably more so than I should be. I don't know why that is, really. My mom was a waitress my whole life, and maybe that's it. I don't know. But anyways, let's play some craps. The first video in the series was a recorded video. I think I was up $38 at the end of it, something like that. So we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to start with 1,000 again. No reason to... That 38 I probably would have tipped anyway. You know what I mean? Like if I left the casino up $38, I probably would have just tipped it. Or sometimes at the casino when I'm leaving, whatever my my money that is separate from the last $100. So like what I mean by that is if I have $138, I'll take that $38 and I'll just go put it on one hand of baccarat or blackjack. And if I win, I'll half press it. If I win, I'll half press it. And I always just collect a little bit anyways, just in case. But I've done it before. The furthest I've ever got is 3 wins doing that. But it took, and I can't remember what I started with that day. Let's just say $50, but it ended up being quite a bit of more money. And again, that's just stuff I do. It's just a personal thing. There's no rhyme or reason to it. There's no advantage to doing anything like that. Most likely, you should just keep your money. So, but anyways, there's $1,000. Again, the reason I'm using the $1,000 is because that's what the person that asked me to talk through all this hybrid stuff, and while I played, uses, and that's what they asked to use. I actually got that cleared up for me yesterday. I tip the shooters sometimes. So here's the problem with tipping the shooters to me. This is what always gets the tipping the shooters to me, is when a shooter shoots well, right? And I'm not talking about from a dice control standpoint, just they have a good roll. If the shooter doesn't really play very well and they're not making good money, I will tend to tip them because I feel bad that they didn't make good money on their shot. And some of that is that they obviously don't know what they're doing, or they started too short on bankroll. There's some reasons that can factor in, right? But on the flip side of that, when a shooter does good, it's perception, right? Because if I'm on the don't and you smack 5 points, it's not helping me, you know? So I have times where I don't tip them for sure. And it's a little bit selfish probably. So anyways, let's start with $1,000. $100 on the don't here. We use these bone thrower dice just because they're sitting out there. The one problem when I do live is my phone screens. It's a different than when I'm just using the normal cameras. It's kind of tricky. But it doesn't quite get the same angles. So I don't quite get as much of the landing zone, but it's okay. I mean, I'm not acting like I'm shooting the dice anyway special, so it doesn't really matter. All right, so here we go, coming out. So today in this video, I'm going to talk a little more, and I'm going to try to, obviously when instances and situations come up, we're going to go through them. But this time I'm going to talk a little bit more and try to work more on the don't side of the hybrid. So sometimes, guys, the best part of hybrid is playing the don't, and sometimes you should be building the don't versus building the boxes. And the reason that is because on what people refer to as a cold table, building the don't is going to be more profitable than building the boxes. And so we're going to do a little more of that today. I'm just going to kind of force it. Normally, I just kind of let it come however it comes. All right, there's a 9 right there. 639. That point up. So that's the 9 is the trickiest one for me on the hybrid because the 9 doesn't really fit any of it, right? It doesn't fit the iron cross. It doesn't fit the advantage on the 4 or 10. So the 9 is always a little different for me. Because sometimes I'll play the 9 and I'll play the iron cross and I might leave off the 5, right? I'll just play like a broken cross there with no 5. Or sometimes I put the 5 on, it just depends. But most of the time, the huge majority of the time on the point of 9, I go 135. And, I know I'm only at $100 bankroll or $100 don't here. So I would probably adjust that. What I would probably end up doing in this case is I would pull those down to $15 bets. And so now I'm at 115. I don't got to put a ton of odds to make my 7 valuable. $30 in odds, $40 in odds, not $40, sorry. $30 in odds, $60, something. You don't got to put 200 or 300, you know what I mean? we're just trying to put some value on the 7. All right. So at this point, the 7 is only really worth $5. And a lot of people, this is a big part of one of the big reasons people don't like hybrid right here, because they rolled to get this $100 don't out there. And then they take all the value off of it when you play hybrid. And that's one of the big negatives of hybrid, right? When you get that point of 9 on that don't and you're a 3-2 favorite for $100, and now I'm only a $5, right? But what those people aren't factoring in is that you did gain all of this probability to win on every roll. And that's the part of it that people they yell about this, but they forget that they're gaining all of that. And so, but I do, when people say that, I do understand why. Because they went through the deadly come out roll. You know what I mean? Hard 6. It's gonna win 35. Personally, I don't care about the come out roll. The come out roll is going to come out however it comes out. Take that one all up to a quarter, the 4 up to a quarter. I don't ever worry about it. Oh yes, smack OLED on the 9. Same thing here, $100 don't. Now we're trying to recover a little bit. Yeah, absolutely skill. So got knocked off. Not a huge deal. Guys, this is another thing, and I want to talk a little bit about this, is that I've developed this hybrid mindset over many years, right? To where when I lose on the come-outs or I get points hit, it doesn't really bother me. Right? Because I know that it's part of the process of it. And I know that over time, I'm going to most likely outpace the bad rolls over time. 4, 3, 7. Now the cycle, you can get in these cycles on the dice, and that's what gets you. So like I just had a bad point roll, and then I come back with a 7. So now, in 2 rolls, I just lost $215, right? Or $230. But you still, there's no, oh, ouch, 3 in a row. So now, it's starting to get expensive. But in the same concept, what I'm talking about is you have to understand that sometimes it's going to go bad, or sometimes it ain't going to go right. And so there's little things you can do. Like I just had 3 losers in a row, right? So like I'm going to bump this one up to 200. And now people, this is the hard part for people, or one of the really hard parts, is that I don't think you should get conservative when you start losing. I think you should get aggressive. I don't think you should go in your shell. I think you should get your guns out. And so that's why, I have a hard time convincing people that that's a good thing to do. They've just got their ass kicked for $300, and I'm telling them to put more money out there on the same bet. And that's one of the hard ones. So there's a 6, 4, 10. So in this case, we just got our butts kicked, right? So I'm pulling all this down here, and I'm going to make me a decision. I'm probably just going to fight this 10. And this is what hybrid offers you, is when you get put in good situations like right here, you can fight just this don't number, try to get all your money back. You can say, okay, I'm going to put, so that's $400 in odds. Let's say 400 in odds. These red chips I'll play the box numbers with. So now I have a $400 don't win there. I have 200 flat, 400 in odds. And now this is going to be another part that people are just going to struggle with. This is aggression, right? I'm in the best position I can be in on the don't. Let me get $10 in white chips. and I got whatever this is left, 24. All right. You could put all this, let's say we're putting all this $24 on the hard 10. Let's call this the hard 10 right there. All right. That 10, because you can't see my hard ways right now. We'll call that the hard 10. That's not a field bet, guys. $24 on the hard 10. So now I'm down the 300 whatever dollars. If I hit my don't here, I'm about even, right? It's gonna be, or if I roll the 7, I'm not too far off even. I'm only down about $100 then. All right, so that's where I'm going, and I'm a 2-to-1 favorite here, and actually a little better now that I've covered this. Now, did I cover it for the whole 400? No, but at least I'm not going to die on a hard 10, right? And there's a 9 that actually kind of puckered me a little there. All right, so it's going to be $21. Take the 5 and the 6 up. Let's take these white chips off. Let's go to 30 on our hard 10. And again, this is just, things went bad to start the day, especially at the start of the day. Now, at the end of the day, sometimes I might get a little conservative if I'm just going to go home anyway, right? But at the start of the day, I've just had one shooter and it kicked my butt for $300. No, I'm attacking. I'm going on the attack. There's a 516. That's going to win $28. I added a little money there. Let's take our 8 up to 30. Let's start racking some. And so this would be my mindset on this. If I lose on the 10, I just lose on the 10, guys. You can lose sometimes. It's going to happen. But if you're just always going to, when you have a bad run, if you're just going to get conservative, you're playing right into what the casino wants. Hello, Larry. $1,000 to start. All right, so that's a 5, and we're going to win 28 on that. So I bumped it up. Let's go to 30 here. Let's go to 20 and 20. And that's my mindset here, is that I'm in the best position I can be in on the don't. I've had my butt kicked. So now I might as well do my best to try to fight back. Like I don't want to just sit there and take grenades and take punches. I'm going to punch back. And maybe that's a mindset of who I am. You know, not everyone has that same mindset. Some people prefer to run, and I'm not saying that that's a negative thing, but there's fight and flight, and I'm a fighter, I'm not a flighter. So there's a 12. So when my mindset is that, man, if this happens, I'm going to just start punching back. If I lose, I lose, you know. As like the Romans and stuff said, I'm going to go out on my shield. If I die, I die. But you know what? You're going to have to kill me. I'm not just going to go and off in the woods and die. You know what I mean? $20 is going to win 28 on that 9. And that's just my mindset, guys, on this. And that's why I do it the way I do it. Nothing any more than that. There's the hard 6 right there. All right, that's going to win 35. And I kind of like that this happened because you get to see whether it works or it doesn't work. You get to see kind of me talk through why I would get more aggressive and not less. But, you know, when you lose 30% of your bankroll in like, let's say, the first 5 rolls of your session, you know, at that point, you're bought in, right? You're locked in. You're like, all right. And there's a 3, 1, 2, 3. Remember, that's not a field bet. That's a hard 10. And then 9. There we go. 6 tray. All right. That is $20. So it's going to be 28. Let's take that all the way up to our quarter. So now we're at 135 across. So it's a pretty good little roll here. You know, maybe you just collect from here on out, remember, because you are down. So maybe you just collect $35 every pop here. Like there's little adjustments you might want to make going through here. And there's a 6, 2, 8. So that's what we'll do here. We'll just collect, at least for 3 or 4 rolls, right? win $100 back, win $200 back, win. The next thing you know, maybe you can pull them odds down if this thing takes off on you. And we got smacked. But, okay, so this is great, right? You get to see that my aggression, it didn't pay off. But it doesn't mean that's not what I'm going to do. All right? But I'm not dead in the water. But it did smack me. And would I be upset that I hit the 10? Of course I would. It would be terrible. I would hate that. But that doesn't mean that it's still not what I'm going to do. It's still not what I think is right. Because I look at my bankroll differently than others too. I look at what I put on the table is completely expendable. I'm not going to put $1,000 on the table and only play $200. If I put $1,000 on the table, I'm going to play $1,000. If I lose, I lose. I just don't. I don't have that thought process. So we're going to put all this on the don't. Let's see, 25. I don't have the. Let's get $5 more here. I don't have the stop loss mindset. My stop loss is the $1,000. I don't know why I would do anything else. Like, it doesn't make sense to me to put all that money on there if you're not going to use it. So, here we go. I'm going to leave them off. Roll this don't. Hopefully we quit hitting points. I mean, that's pretty brutal. I think this still might, and there's the 7. All right. Is this still the same original shooter? I think it is, right? The same original shooter just punching on me. And so at this point, people would say, well, why aren't you just going light side? Whatever your light side indicator is, like 2 hits off, 3 hits off, whatever you're doing, yeah, sure, you could just jump light side. It makes total sense. All right, we have $18. Let's put $18 on the pass line. All right, we're still shooting, still same shooter. We just giving away $900, right? And an 11. All right, that's an $18 win. That's weird. I'm gonna fix the chips here. All right, so 18 and 18. There we go. Let's parlay that sucker. 10 the hard way. All right. Now, I mean, we're locked in, right? This has went off the rails. We're locked into what we're doing here. It's not hybrid right now, but we're going to try to push a transition through. Absolutely, 100%. You have to have the money for the variance. So something I used to talk about a lot, I haven't talked about it much anymore, I still totally believe it, is strategy is built for winning and bankroll is built for losing. So your strategy and your bankroll have to match, right? So in this strategy I'm playing, $1,000 bankroll doesn't match it, right? It just doesn't. You need a little more money than that. But not because today, like what we've seen today, but just overall, you just need a little more money than $1,000 to play this unless you're going to play much smaller. But bankroll is for the losses, to cover the losses, and strategy is to produce the wins. And that is my mindset on all of this. I use the strategy to try to create the win, and the bankroll to limit, the variance, to be safe from the variance. And there is the final blow. Oh, smashed. Now that would be a really short session. I think that was just the second shooter. That would I be tilted slightly? Of course I would. Of course I would. If I only lasted 2 shooters for $1,000, of course I'm going to be tilted. That's another thing that I've figured out is that when you're tilted, it's okay. It's natural to be upset about losing money. Or it's natural to be upset about losing something you're passionate about, right? Because the money doesn't matter to me as much as losing at the game. Let me see your question. Let me find it. Do you prefer a cross rather than higher 6 and 8 only? The thing with that skill is I prefer the probability advantage. I want the biggest probability advantage per roll of dice. I want to be at the highest probability advantage to make a win on a roll, as many rolls as I can. So I know the don't, when you're coming out on the don't, you don't get no advantage, right? You're in the disadvantage. But after that, I want every single roll of my dice after that to be in a huge probability advantage. Yes, I just because I think that over time, staying in the probability advantage over is more important than having big bets. Now, with that said, if your preference is to load up on one or two numbers and go for that, I'm not saying that's wrong, because that is awesome. If you go that way and it does go your way, you're catching up way faster than I am. So there is a time element in there. And by time, what I mean is the amount of rolls it would take. Because if you are down $300, but you put a $250 nine out there versus your don't, and you hit your nine, well, now you're back. You're up. You're ready to rock again. Where if I put the spread the same $250 out, I'm going to need 5, 6, 7 hits probably. And so there's definitely value to just making a couple big bets. There's no doubt about that. Now, I think if you're going to play that way, you need a much larger bankroll. And that is that if I had, for example, if every day I could go to the casino and just throw $10,000 on the table, I would not play hybrid, guys. And let me explain why. Because hybrid is built around what I can afford, the way I've done it. I know I could scale it all up, but hybrid still takes some action to be profitable, right? It takes a handful of rolls. It takes a handful of shooters. It's not generally just like the first run, boom, you got it. I would much rather, if I had a lot of money to spend on craps, if I had $10,000 to buy in each time, I would much rather do something like the Dallas Drawdown, like John shows, where I'm only looking for one or two rolls, and then I'm playing big craps with big profits. So to me, the more money you get, the shorter and shorter and shorter you should make your rolls to profit. I used to call it my zero exposure ratio. And I actually, guys, believe it or not, I wrote like 7 chapters of a book about that. And I just have never done anything else with it because my mindset changed a little bit. And so I've done that twice now, where I've written a handful of chapters of a book, and then my mindset in craps takes a really big turn. And so then I don't feel the same about what I've written. So they're just sitting there on the computer. Anyway, that's just something that I've failed to finish ever. And I've done it twice. Like, I've got way into a book twice. And still then something changes, right? More information comes out. People open my eyes. For example, we'll talk about skill and luck here. Skill and luck changed some of my mindset on some stuff at different times. He's like, well, you don't got to roll as many times if you just regress here instead of here, So my mindset would change. Like, oh yeah, that's a much better way to play this. And so keep that in mind, guys, that everything I talk about and show you guys and give you my opinions on and I stand on is something that I've either spent tons of time in my own lab doing, or done and talked to all these other craps players and got their opinions on things and their information and their thoughts and the way they do it. And I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, I never did that. I never looked at it from that angle. And so that all of that is encompassing in what I talk about. And that is why I think some of my stuff resonates so well with people, is because I'm not in a box, right? I don't keep it in one little box. Like, I'm like, the only way to win is to shoot the dice, or I only play light side, or you can't beat the odds. I don't ever say anything like that, right? That's never who I am. I'm open to all of it. If you have something that's way better than what I'm doing, please let me know, because I would love to know it. And so, but I would, if I could play much bigger, if I could play, $500 bets across the board every play, I would much rather do that for 1 or 2 hits. So let me show you what I mean. We'll just do that really quick here. So I'll use these blue chips, all right, and we'll get 2 black chips. So this would be like 3,200 across. So let's say I had a $30,000 bankroll, and I could do this every play. And I can do this right here. Say 3,200 across, and let's say you're at a $25 table and you're putting a $25 line bet down so you can shoot the dice. In this point right here, if you hit anything out there, you can drop down to $600 across. You know what I mean? Like, and then play big boy craps. You're going to be the biggest player at most tables. And so you don't necessarily have to buy in for the whole 30K in your pocket, but you buy in for 10 grand at a pop, and that's fine. It's still your bankroll. Just, most of the time they don't really want you buying in for 30 grand really, unless you're at a, $200 minimum table or something. But so anyways, let's say you did that. Now, one hit on any hit out there, any of those, you're winning at least $700. And so you can hit that 600 across, So let's just roll this. I just want to show you. Okay, so let's say we're just playing the pass line here. Box numbers are off because that's how most people play. Box numbers are off. All right, we got a 5. Boom, boom. 5 right there. That was a 5 and a 4. Doesn't really matter. All right, so now we're just looking for one hit. One hit, and then we're going to regress down to 600 across or 604 across or something like that, right? 620, whatever. Well, that one jumped out of the table. Up in the wood is no good. All right, try this again. So this is, if I had a lot of money to put on the table every roll of the dice, this is the kind of stuff I would do. There's the 10 right there. Bang, okay. So let's say after big, that $500 is going to pay you $1,000, guys. So after the big, I'm not worried about the big right now. Bang, you just win $1,000. Now you pull all this back down. You got $1,000 to use for free. For free. You're playing for free with $1,000 now. So think about that. So if you had a lot of money to play on the craps table, to me, as soon as you can get to profit, you're going to be awesome, right? You're going to be in such good shape. All right, so now your $1,000, whatever you want to do, let's say, okay, because if you hit the 4 or 10, you're in really good shape, right? Now you're going to say, okay, I want to do the 600 across or whatever, 640, whatever you want to do, right? So now you're here. It's $600, so let's trade that in. Get our 400. And, let's get 100 here. So this is what we did. Let's say we did 700 across. You won 1,000. Well, you won a little less than 1,000, right? But now you're 700 across. You're in the profit. You've already made money on the shooter no matter what happens. And now you're playing at this level. So you just have such a huge advantage now. So if the roll goes 5 more rolls and that's all you win is 5 more times, there's that 5. All right, so it's going to win 120 plus the quarter. 140 plus the quarter, sorry. My bad. All right, so now that pulls down. And let's just say every time you're just going to put the black chip out there because it doesn't matter what you do. So if you have this kind of money to play craps with, this is the easiest way to play craps. There's a come out 7. This is by far the easiest way to play craps is if you have a ton of money, which is the case with any gambling actually. If you have a ton of money to gamble with, it's going to be way easier for you to win. All right, here we go. And there's the 5. So 200, that's going to pay 280. And maybe whatever you do, you like the 5 still, or you want to come over here, take your 6 to 300. Whatever the case is, it doesn't matter because you're already in the profit off of one roll, one winning roll. Now, everything you do is just trying to really smack the casino, right? Now you summed out here, but that's fine. And that's what I'm saying is that if you don't have to rely on consistent play and you can rely on just attacking for a very short amount of time, it's going to be a much easier game. But, to me and to a lot of people, I could do the same thing with $1,000, and let's say I win $70, right? Yeah, that's a really good strategy. I've actually, yeah, that's a really good play, Gerald. And that, but that's what I'm saying. So, but for a lot of people, a $63 win or going to that, that's pennies to them in the craps world. And I know there's a whole bunch of people that's a huge win, and I'm happy for them, and they should use that kind of play. But like if I did that, like if I'm buying in for 1,500, that is too small for me. It's going to be too. I'm going to lose focus on that, and this is something I think craps players do, is because everyone wants to go in there and win a chunk, right? They want to win something, and it's really hard to keep your profit goal in sight sometimes, especially if it goes really good or really bad, right? You get there, the first shooter, and this one kills a lot of people, and that first shooter crushes it. Boom. You just drove, let's say you're even close like Kayam. I drove 2 hours to the casino, and the first shooter goes on a 20 roller, and I'm up $1,300, let's say. I'm not going to leave. I have plenty of times for sure. What I do sometimes when that happens is I'll go eat. But that first shooter crushes it, and now all of a sudden you're like, dang, I don't want to leave. And so you end up kind of bleeding that money back, right? So there's a lot more that goes into craps than just what the dice come up as or what your bankroll is. There's mental stuff. There's a physical element to it. I can't tell you how many times I've got tired at the craps table and just it wore me out, and I just played bad afterward. But anyways, guys, this was a fun video. I'm glad the live is working really well. I'm going to close this out here because my family just got home and I got to get my kid ready for baseball practice and stuff. But cool, the live is working great. Thank you guys for tuning in and checking this out, watching me get my butt kicked, and then watching this other little demonstration and listening to me yap. But anyways, guys, thank you for your time. This is awesome. The live is going to be so much fun with the new internet. You guys have a great day.